And I just have to say, I love your channel because you were the first when I was diagnosed. I was going through, and you were the first autistic person I ever saw who even looked like relatively like somebody I would hang out with.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult, a neurodiversity podcast, the show where potential went to die. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie Michaels. I use she, her.
I am your other host, Jessica Michaels, and I use she, they.
And today we have a very special episode, not just a hyperfixation, but a guest hyperfixation. Who do we got today, Jess?
Yes, I am very, very excited to meet the creator and of the Aspie world, which is one of my favorite channels on YouTube. Dan Jones is with us today, so welcome.
Guys,
Yay!
it's a pleasure. How's it going?
It's rainy and we're in a desert.
Raining in a desert.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. It's thunder snowing outside, so it's thunderstorm with snow, which is a thing. So yeah, so it's
I have I've experienced this in Canada, because I live between here on Anglesey in North Wales, in the United Kingdom, and I also live in London, Ontario, in Canada. So I
oh
just got back a couple of days ago. But while I was there, about a week ago, it was like thunder and lightning, and it started to snow. I was like, "What? Like, what is this? Like a 17th season in one day?"
yeah,
But yeah, it was bizarre.
yeah. So today is an indoor day for us for sure. So
Well, the weather's beautiful here in Anglesey. I live on an island. The weather's beautiful, blessed with a fantastic day. I've already done five. I did a 6K run. I did a full body workout, cleaned my house, and I've been to a family event. God bless meds.
yeah, right. That is superstar executive function right there. That is
It is
definitely winning. That's fantastic.
100%.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and your work before we dive into the dopamine stuff?
Perfect. Yeah. Look, my name is Daniel Jones. That's my given name, right? But my online pseudonym is the Aspie World. I am a social media entrepreneur. Used to be called YouTuber, but now it's a different kind of, kettle of fish. I create books on autism. I win awards for things, my autism advocacy in the real world. I create YouTube videos, social media content across the board, helping people who are autistic, mainly adults, urge themselves towards existence in a way that really truly gets them to the peak of where they are, because people are so much more able than they can believe, and it's all down to self-belief, right? So my job is to kind of like really rock that out of people and be like, dude, you are more than you could ever have imagined. You just need to realize that, right? And I'm here to bring that realization, and I love that. And so that's what I do on a daily basis. I strive every single day to make change in as many people's lives as possible. I'm a big believer in this, because a lot of people will be like, if I change one person's life, I've done my job. Bullshit. If I haven't hit 1 million people by the end of next year, then I'm doing a shit job. Because if you're not doing a good enough job, it's going to show, right? Like, it's true. Like, what, we are like 9 billion people on the planet. If you don't hit 1 million of those to change their lives, you're doing a terrible job. So I have it. It's my duty, obligation, my moral standing to make as many good changes in people's lives as possible, to urge them towards existence, because I want people to really know their true power. And I love it. Awesome. I can flip a table right now. Let's go.
Uh, and before we started recording, I disclosed a little bit that your channel was one of the first channels I saw after my diagnosis, and I instantly was struck because I had seen several creators who kind of look like my mom, and that is great. I love my mom, and I love getting information from my mom. But you were the first person I saw. If you're just listening, you've got tats, you've got the lip piercing, the gauges, and I was just like, oh, like this is a person I would hang out with. This is cool. And it was so eye-opening for me because I was in that point of trying to figure out like what does this autism and ADHD, what does this make me? Like, how much of me is still me, and how much of me is this diagnosis? And then I was like, oh, this guy, this is totally him. This is 100% him. And these other things are a part of him, but he's out there rocking his life. And so this doesn't need to be a limitation on who I am, and it really kind of shattered any stereotype that I had
Absolutely.
very
Yeah.
early. So I just have to say thank you for the work that you do.
You know, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an honor to do the work that I do. I feel like I'm truly blessed with the ability because I'm quite unique in the way that I'm an introvert and an extrovert at the same time. And my lexicon and my ability to communicate in certain ways, especially through the medium of video and blog and expressing how I see and experience life in a way that people can digest very easily, is kind of like a gift, right? And I have some kind of like, I don't know what it is. And I've had to, I was talking about this with my girlfriend, like I have some kind of like charisma. I know people, a lot of people call it BDE these days, but it's not. I would say it's like more of like a charismatic draw. Like a lot of people are drawn to me for some reason, and I feel like now I harness that power to be like, wow, if you're drawn to me, if you like listening to, like people say to me all the time, hey. I could listen to you talk all day. Your voice is so soothing and blah blah blah. And your accent, I can't place it. It's transatlantic. It's a bit weird, right? And it's all of these factors come together, and the fact that like I can do this and I can talk to people and they want to listen. I'm like, I have the ability to help these people because I can talk to them in a way that they can understand, you know, and that's so important. So it's an absolute honor to do what I do. And thank you so much for the kind words. Honestly, it's the reason it's hearing that it helps me keep going. I'm like, that's what motivates me, you know. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's hit another million people like this, right? Well, you know what's funny about tattoos is that it becomes sensory seeking at a certain point. So as they're tattooing, it hurts like, of course it's going to hurt, but also the vibration and the repetitiveness. I'm like, this is very enjoyable. So there was like a set, like I don't know if you do it like with a vacuum cleaner. I'm like, I like hum with the vacuum cleaner because I find like
Hmm.
a sensory vibration with it. Same with tattooing. I get to a point, I'm like, keep going, man, keep going. So yeah, I do. I love tattoos. I think tattoos are great. I think you should never regret a tattoo. I think it's part of your story, part of you as a human, and it's part of who you are. And also, is that a Star Trek tattoo? I peek on your arm there. This is, and it's not a science officer. What is this? What is
Yeah, that's
the?
sciences.
Oh, the new one though, right? From
That's actually the
Newer.
Kelvin one, and it looks like a sandwich to me. But I also cook a lot, so like sciences, and
okay,
it's a burger. So yeah,
Star
yeah.
Trek is awesome. I love it. Favorite Star Trek episode ever has to be episode one, season two, Star Trek, the original series, Amok Time, where Spock and Kirk fight to the death on Vulcan. It's the first time we ever see Vulcan as well in Star Trek. Amazing. The theory of that actual episode, Gene Roddenberry was an absolute genius. Anyway, carry on.
We have had to cut out like hours of this podcast where we just go off on Star Trek tangents, and
Love it.
our poor producer has been like, "Ladies, like, come back to the topic." We're like, but
What I love about Star Trek is that like it's not too liberal that it's crazy, but it's very good in the fact that it allows women to assume like Michael Burnham, right? She assumes captain of the ship, and also there was a homosexual couple in Discovery. Great story because it showed real people. Like this is real life, you know. Like some
And they're
people
so
are gay,
boring. They're
some
so
people have
boring. Like
intersexually, you know.
it's just two people brushing their teeth at the end of the day, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
so gay is just a version of human we get. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's good,
I get,
and I love it. Do you know what? And do you know what? I love it because like my brother is a homosexual man, and I love him to pieces. Obviously, he's my big brother. Looked up to him all my life, and to see his minority right represented in a way that's kind of like allowing people to be like, look, dudes, like it's just people are people, right? Love is love. It doesn't matter who you love or how you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody or you're, committing like what do they call it? When there's more than one, marriage. I think there's like a law against it, right? But anyway, as long as you're not hurting anybody and breaking the law, go for it, man. You know what I mean?
mhm.
mhm.
Like, love is love, dude. Like, go for it.
Yeah, I think for anybody who is in a minority, as people who are autistic and have ADHD, and are a part of the disability community, it doesn't make sense to me to have anything against any other minority group because a lot of the struggles that minority groups have or marginalized groups have are very, very similar. And if we lift each other up, then we have a much better chance of actually being heard than if we just fight our own individual battles and try to take each other down. That doesn't make sense to me.
100%. Dude, I have this argument with the Asperger's versus autistic or neurodivergent and high function, low function. You can't use this terminology and you can't say have autism with autism, autistic. You have to use all this first person language. Guess what? None of this matters. What matters is how we, as autistic individuals in this community, help each other out to create a more accessible and fundamental life. If you want to use the term Asperger's, go for it. He wasn't a Nazi. I have a very extensive 26-minute video where I analyzed this document that people are talking about from 2018, which was a 7-year study by people who hated him anyway, talking about why people believe he was a Nazi, even though he isn't, right? So this term gets thrown around a lot. Oh, Hans Asperger's a Nazi. Well, he wasn't, right? And I just want to state that. And if you wanted to check out the video, type in the Aspie world, Hans Asperger, watch my 26-minute breakdown of that paper where I highlight the exact pieces that everybody is talking about. And none of it makes any sense to think he was a Nazi. On the contrary, he actually stopped kids going to the concentration camps and was arrested by the Gestapo because he would not allow the Third Reich to take over the clinic 100%. He said, they're safer in my care, leave them with me. He saved millions of kids' lives over the course of the time in Vienna. And more to the point, there is one instance where his name appeared on a clinical document for a girl that was in his care that she was taken to a concentration camp. Unfortunately, he did not say take this person. His name was on a document because he was the master of the clinic. But when there's a gun to your head and the Nazis run the clinic, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. He tried everything in his power. So it's a bit of an insult to say he's a Nazi, but that's all I'm going to say on it. So if you want to use the term Asperger's, go for it. Makes no difference.
So, speaking of things you love, you are
Yeah.
here to talk about what we call a hyperfixation episode, which is, we love to bring creators on and talk about, what right now are you really into, whether it's a lifelong special interest or recent hyperfixation, what is giving you dopamine and feeding your brain joy right now that you can share with us.
Okay, so there's loads of things, right? And you guys will probably definitely know that, like, we have many hyperfixations over a period of time, right? So I think one of my first hyperfixations was robotics and engineering. I loved this. When I was a kid, I used to build robots, like the ones. I don't know if you ever seen like I don't know what you call it. You guys are in the States, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was like a thing where you have like those robots that like battle each other, like battle
Rock'em
Battlebots.
bots.
sock'em robots.
Hmm.
No, not the rockets, the battle robots. Like
BattleBots.
they're like yeah, they're like RC
Oh
controlled.
yeah, yeah,
Battle bots,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I used to build those.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I used
nice.
to do. Yeah. So that was cool. That was like my first thing, right? And then I was really into. I've always been a scientist. I've been really interested in science. So I did a bachelor's degree in chemistry. So I have a BSc in chemistry, which was going to be a PhD, but they closed down the department. But because of Brexit, terrible idea, but whatever. I didn't vote for it. Anyway, but more recently, there's two things that stick out. One is the terror attacks of 9/11. Huge thing. It impacted my life. And to me, it's a big puzzle, right? I look at it and I'm like, what the hell? I even analyzed the soil when I was doing my degree in chemistry. We analyzed 10 samples of soil for 9/11, found different things in it, like trying to figure out what on earth happened, right? Because it's shrouded in mystery. I mean, if you read the NIST report, it never says anything. It doesn't tell you how the towers collapsed. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Three towers hit by two planes don't fall down, like it's weird. So to me, it was like a big puzzle. So I love cracking open puzzles, right? That's how my brain works, and so that to me is one that's always ongoing. I'm constantly trying to figure it out. Like, what the heck? Like, I constantly getting dopamine because I'm like, what happened? It's so morbid, and more importantly, it's emotionally fueled because I'm like, how many people died? Like, holy shit! Like to me, it's like I need to figure this out because I don't want to see this happening again. Like, if we can figure out how this happened, we can stop it happening again, right? And so it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so anyway, so I researched that extensively. I've been to Ground Zero. Dude, like, honestly, I'm such a nerd. I went to Ground Zero, all the books on it. Like I've
You got
interviewed
to do
people.
everything. You got to do
You
all
have
the
to do the
things.
whole 9 yards. 100%, dude. I've seen every fucking video and documentary you could possibly think of on 9/11. It's so interesting, like morbid and horrendous, but also fascinating from an archaeological or an engineering concept and a science concept. It's kind of like physics went out the window that day, and it's like, well, how did this happen? Anyway, regardless of that, that's like my main fixation. I get so much dopamine from it. I'm like, but my real interest that I love is it's like a bigger picture. It's social media marketing and digital entrepreneurship, but how to do this in a way where you give 10 times the value of what you actually get back. So if I make a program that is so vast and the value of it would be, I don't know, 10 or $1,000. Say somebody said to me, like, on a professional scale, they'd pay me $1,000 to train and coach their office. I'd sell it to them for $100 because to me, it has to be that I give 10 times more to the people I'm trying to help than what I get back in payment, right? The value exchange has to be 10 times more for the people you serve because I'm a strong believer in serving people. Like, I'm here to help. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to make an impact, right? Making money is how we survive in a bizarre capitalist society we live in currently in extortionate inflation rates. But in terms of helping people, that's number one. That's priority number one. So I'm obsessed. How can I do this in the best manner? And it comes down to all manner of things. I'm obsessed with how organic social media content works, how you communicate the landing pages to people. How do you get people to realize that the thing you're giving them is of that value, so that they're not like, oh, it's $27, but I'm gonna not give it. I'm like, yeah, but this thing's worth like $2,700. It's only 27, so you're getting like a big deal. And we're like, and it's interesting because there are limiting beliefs in people's minds where, and it's so funny. If you gave everything away for free, first of all, you wouldn't be able to do any of it because you wouldn't have any kind of sustainable income. But the other thing is that if you gave something away for free, the value devalues. People go like, "Oh, if
Hmm.
it's free, I'm not going to do it." Like, how many times if you put on a free show, like an event, and it was free, nobody turns up. If you charge $3 per ticket, everybody shows up because they go, "I'm going to get my money's worth out of this ticket," right? Because people are crazy. So, to me, it's finding that balance. I love it. It's almost like a psychology of what's best for the person and how to get them to realize that's what's best for them. Okay, so what I'm getting so much joy from right now, no, this is true, is I do coaching calls with people one on one. Oh man, meeting people is such a blessing, and I mean this in the best way possible because look, time is finite, right? And we're dying every second of every minute of every single day, and how we choose to spend that time is very important. And the people we spend that time or share that time with, it's so precious. Forget money, forget everything else. Time is our only asset that we should be definitely more vigilant with how we do it and be more caring with how we give our time to people. So when people book time with me, I'm like, this is so like, wow, they value me so much that they want to exchange their precious time with me, right? And I'm going to talk about haters and stuff in a minute. This is really interesting. So right now I'm coaching people one on one, and I have the best crack with these people. Like it's it's motivating people to elevate them to levels that they didn't even know they could do. And I'm like, dudes, like, and I'm basically just holding a mirror up. I'm saying you're the most powerful human being alive. Like, we're the most powerful species alive. Look in the mirror. Look at what you built. Like, your species survived some of the turning point for these people, right? Because people come on and they be like, Dan, I'm feeling like down and I'm depressed and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna rock it out of you right now. We're gonna do it in a few seconds. I say, look, think about this. The odds of you being alive are 400 trillion to one. So the fact that you're actually here is a fucking miracle, right? Straight off the bat, 400 trillion to one. I never gambled that in my life. I don't gamble anyway, but I'm saying if I was a gambler, 400 trillion to one odds, no, thank you. You know what I mean? I'd rather just save my money. So think about this, guys, and this is gonna blow your mind. From the dawn of time, since you were a hominid species walking around, Australopithecus, Neanderthal, Homo sapien, Homo erectus, we were all hominids, like, and everyone died out. And then you survived an ice age, fucking Triassic period, woolly mammoths, saber-tooth tigers, glaciers, another ice age, global warming, the cholera, the bubonic plague, the wars in Europe, the wars in America, Second World War, First World War, the plague, Spanish flu, COVID, and you're still here. You are the kings and queens, knights killing each other, people on horseback, arrows, bow and arrows, happening all the time. In the Europe, no, 2 out of 3 people in Europe died during the bubonic plague outright. You survived. Your DNA is resilient. There is a reason you are here. Holy, look in the mirror and go like, fuck, I can do anything because I fucking survived. Like, there is a reason for you to be here. It's so important. People forget, one, how beautiful they are. Two, that the universe loves them because they need to be here. And it's so crazy when they realize, like, oh shit, 400 trillion to one and all that my ancestors have been through just to make sure that I'm here now complaining about maybe, like, I don't know, anything. And it's not to say that people don't have struggles. Please believe me, I know I have my own struggles, but I assume responsibility for everything that happens in my life, good and bad. And once I do that, then I realize, okay, I can actually go forward with that. Because if you assume responsibility, then you can change it, right? We can't change what happened in the past, but we can definitely predict where our future is going to go. And I love that because when people realize how powerful, how beautiful, and how truly loved they are, they can beam like the sun. They can do whatever they want. It's amazing. I love it. So I'm getting so much joy awakening people to realizing their full potential and power, especially autistic individuals, because I like to see it as like a homo novus, if you will. Like we're the brains are evolving, and autistic people seem to be ahead of that. You must have this experience, right? When and I say, people say to me like, "How do you see the world?" I say it's like this. Imagine going to a pre-K class and everyone's like 2 and 3 years old, and you're a full-grown intellectual scientific adult trying to analyze documents and trying to explain analytical data to these kids. They're like playing with crayons. I'm like, that's my experience with every other in real life because I'm like, you guys, I have to dumb myself down to talk to people on their intellectual level, and it's painful. So it's like, like that's what I mean. So autistic individuals, I vibe like fuck because like we get it, right? I can talk to you guys about this now, and you're not like, Dan, slow down, I can't understand you. Dan, this is crazy shit. Like you're just like, yeah, vibing, like you know what I mean? I love it. I
No,
love it.
it's the
Anyway, sorry.
opposite because most people talk so slow.
They
Like,
do.
I we're a third of the way into your sentence. I know what you're going to say. I know what we're doing. Let's
Yeah.
just come on, come on, come on. Let's go get you some espresso. Like,
No, I did. I love it. Oh, and I love the fact that you said espresso, not espresso. That's my pet peeve when people can't say espresso. I'm like, okay, first of all, like, where did you read espresso? You know, like, what the hell? And second of all, who hasn't corrected you? Ah, my pet peeve. I
Your
swear down.
friends are jerks if they're letting you go
it's
around saying that. Like, you need
Yeah.
better people to hang out with.
like when somebody says, "I
Yeah.
learned it from osmosis." Like, no, you learned it from diffusion. Osmosis is diffusion, but just for water. Hence, like osmotic. Everything.
Oh my goodness. It's true. It's true. And like people have no, people, and it's a shame. People have no idea. I'm like also like, what the fuck are they teaching people in school? It's like, you know, like the thing is, I left school with no qualifications, right? High school because I was in the special ed program, and back then when I was in high school in the mid '90s, early '90s, there was no autism program, especially here in Wales. And I'm still, dude, I'm a scientist. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry, right? And it's like if I can do that, what are they teaching in school? You know, like kids have every they got chat GPT these days and they're still failing. I'm like, dudes, come on. Like our
It's
grandparents, like how the f did they get a degree? Like candlelight, like going to a library at midnight. Like holy like at least I had the internet, when I did my degree. Like I'm thinking like I'm blessed. And now the kids have got chat GPT and like Gemini. I'm like, oh my God, it's like it's crazy. It's crazy.
in everything I've read and everything I've heard of like sci-fi and weird dystopia and AI taking over, it being this dumb never like came up. It's not like, oh, it's gonna
Yeah.
automate and then we won't have jobs. Like, okay, cool, then we don't need to work all the time. And it's like, no, no, actually, it's just gonna make everything dumb and
Yeah.
it's gonna make everything all papers nonsensical.
No,
Asimov didn't think of that one.
Yeah, look, AI is never going to take over. I think the more realistic, futuristic version of us, I mean, going maybe 1,000 years in the future, is we're going to be a technological biologic. So we're going to be fused with technology, right? We're already seeing like implants of like different things for different conditions, right? Where they put electronic devices that will mend with your biology that will help you, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a way of sustaining life, right? But then we have the kind of moral question: should we sustain life if it's supposed to die at a certain time, or is it supposed to die? Who knows? I don't know. I don't have the answers to the questions, but I guess like that's where the future's heading. Is AI going to take over everyone's jobs? No, because I'd like to see ChatGPT build a house. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
I have a
Yeah.
problem, especially, I mean, and I try to be very understanding of other neurodiversity creators on
Yeah.
spaces like LinkedIn, where a lot of your job is basic education, educating the masses on
Yeah.
neurodiversity, introducing topics. But I have seen the proliferation of ChatGPT, LinkedIn postings, and I have a hard time hanging out on LinkedIn anyway. But then to just see kind of the soulless content regarding the thing that I care about most in the world, which is my work and my advocacy. I think there is such an element missing that I don't think it's a one-to-one where AI can replace a lot of these intellectual conversations and things that we need to be having because it's giving you the sum total of what has been written. But we know, especially when it comes to autism and ADHD, a lot of what has been written has been observations from clinicians, not the stories of people who are living it. And so you're going to get this sterile type of content that you're just perpetuating some of these challenges that we've had. So it's not my favorite right now, for sure.
You 100% hit the nail on the head. It's like my biggest peeve with like people say, oh, why should I take your training, Dana? Why should I take? Because I have many online courses. If you go to learnautism.net, it's kind of like my library where you can buy my courses. I have some for like $17. I have some for like $240, right? Because they're like the 8 hour extensive ones. But people are like, why should I listen to you, Dan? I'm like, because for 26 years, I walked around in the dark and realized that I did survive. And it's a lived experience of autism and ADHD combined. And I can express it in a way where you can digest it without look, think about it, like intellectual bump, language that's like you don't need to know like big kind of vocabulary issues. You just need to know like the bare basics, like what is wrong, or not wrong. What is the issue? How do I pivot from that? What can I learn? How can I execute this in my life? Because it's not about like learning the things to know verbatim. Like, well, I know what this means. Newton's laws of motion means that it predicts, an object in motion. Blah blah blah. Those things are really interesting, yes, but that's not going to help you. What you want is a practical takeaway, being like, hey, Jane, hey, Josh, today, what I'm going to teach you is that, like, hey, if you're struggling day to day in an environment, what you actually really are striving for, and your brain is telling you at the end of the day when you're burnt out and you go home and explode, is that you need sensory breaks during the day. All this means is that every hour to maybe hour and a half, take 5 minutes, take a breather, drink some water, get some oxygen flowing around, realize, ground yourself that you're here, you're human, you matter, and you're safe, and then get back to it. Practical, simple strategies that will change your life. That is what we're striving for. But you're absolutely right. If you go on LinkedIn, it's like a cesspit of bull. It's like academic bollocks. And like, I can't stand it. It's like, and I get it because I'm an intellect. I'm a scientist. I get it. I wrote a thesis, right? Oh, you guys are going to love it. My thesis, right, when I did my chemistry degree was my favorite part and what I majored in was molecular symmetry and group theory. And point group theory is a very interesting way where you have to rotate things three-dimensionally in your head to find out what their planes of symmetry are and how they rotate in space. And a lot of the people, the reason I did this is because I really enjoyed it, but my professor was like, "Oh, this is actually one of the biggest areas that people have difficulties in." I was like, "Holy shit, cool! So there's a problem. I can help solve this because I see problems as a potential towards a solution and not actually a problem, which is how we overcome things, right? You can't solve everything, but you can overcome many issues." So I got Minecraft and I built these massive chemistry models in Minecraft. It's on YouTube. I can send you a link. And then I built the planes of symmetry within those using free tools. And I made this amazing Minecraft world where you could see all kinds of molecular symmetry and point group theory models in Minecraft. And it was great. Like the amount of people who asked me if they could buy it for their kids, I'm like, no. But it was great. But that's all it needed. I have my thesis here. It's very thin. Like I've written two other books, right? And my books are kind of like, my books are like this thick, right? But my thesis, I could get it out. It's going to take ages. It's about this thick. And like it's like maybe 70 pages, right? And they're like, "What are you doing 70 pages?" I got 75% in my dissertation thesis, right? Which means that was an A plus. So it doesn't have to be the biggest, most complex document in the world. It has to provide the value in which the promise is based on. And I used something called the Stephen Chan. Can I explain to you a small kind of solution, like a process I go through in my head when I do anything? Right? You're
Please.
gonna love this,
Please.
and hopefully you'll take this forward with you forever. It's called the Stephen Chan scenario. Back when I was in high school, I did electronics because I'm a nerd, and there was another nerd in the class called Stephen Chan. Lovely guy, Chinese bloke, very smart, very able. Was very incredibly articulate with electronics. He was about 10 times better than me at electronics. Right, I barely could put it together. So we're passing out of high school, and our pass out exam is basically this: the tutor came in and said, "Right, you guys have got to make something that works, and we're going to test it on the last day, and this is how you pass. Right? It's a pass or fail." And I said, "Okay, cool." So there's me thinking, what am I going to do? So I go, okay, very simple. I'm going to make a light sensitive diode that it goes dark, it senses that it's dark outside, and a light comes on outside your front door. Easy peasy. These are very practical. Everybody has one. I could do it. I could draw it out. I knew I was able to do it, but I knew it'd work, right? Just take the battery, piece of piss. Stephen Chan decided he wanted to make a motherboard for a computer, like a PC motherboard for a computer. Very able, draw the whole thing out, knew exactly what I wanted to do, did it, started executing it, etching out the stuff with acid, went through the whole thing. The last, like 2 weeks into the assessment, mine was done. So I wrote up my kind of, thesis on it. And the paper was done. I did the exam and I passed it to the lecturer. The lecturer was like, "Right, now we're going to test everything, boys." And all this time I'm watching Stephen Chan sweating his ass off trying to get this thing finished because it was so complex. So the last day they go, "Dan, does this work?" Turned it on, covered it with their hands. Light comes on. Job's good. Dan passes. Great. I passed electronics with basic electrical engineering skills. Stephen Chan, more able than me, 10 times the amount of skills, and he had leverage over me. However, Stephen didn't even finish his motherboard because he'd bitten off too much than he could chew. So no matter how clever you are, he failed the basics of the question. Build something that works. It wasn't build the most complex thing you can think of. And so I always go down to the Stephen Chan and I look at him and go, he failed a class that I passed in. Yeah, he was way more able than me. Or was he? I don't know. So That's the Stephen Chan scenario. So I apply everything in my life to that. I say, does it need to be as complex as possible, or does it need to just define one single outcome? If I can get that outcome as quickly as possible in the most efficient way as possible, I will achieve the goal of I will achieve the outset of the scenario that they presented to me, and that succession will be 100% completed. That to me is where we should be, right? And it's the same with overcomplicating kind of information on autism.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It's something that Jess tells me repeatedly. If I'm doing like video production for a small company or whatever, I'm like, well, I'm not like the greatest, and I have like a couple of cameras and a closet I sit in and edit stuff. She's like, well, is it better than what the owner of the business could do? Well, yeah. Then that's why they're paying you. Go, here you go. That's perfect. That's
Exactly.
enough. Don't let
We
perfect be the enemy of good.
we tend to
Yes.
think of 100%, we think if we could physically do something, or if we have the mental capacity to do something, then any project requires every bit of everything that we could give it. And I think that contributes to a lot of burnout because, as you said, you don't have to make the most complicated thing every single time because often that's not answering the question. That's not what serves the needs of the thing that you're doing. Even though to you it may feel like you're doing 70% or 80%, are you doing 100% of what the situation calls for? And that can help reduce burnout in people when they realize, because I think so many of us have had experiences, especially if you are part of the gifted community or ADHD community, where you look around and go, well, everybody else is turning in crap. It's like, well, but you are also more stressed out and you are, totally pushing yourselves to the limit and maybe not, giving something that is ultimately overcomplicating the issue. Um,
Yes. With the
and
Stephen
we
Chan
love
stuff.
context. I mean, autistics, we love our context. And so sometimes we do think more words are better words and people will understand.
Yes.
But often that isn't the best track through what the problem that we're approaching.
It's chasing novelty, I think. Because I did that same thing that your classmate did. Like anytime we were doing like in like high school when you're doing like an egg drop where you have to design like a parachute or something or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a landing capsule for an
Yeah,
egg.
get this
I'm
across the
like
boat, or yeah.
I- like okay, I could do this with like four things in a half an hour and it would work.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or I could do something way ridiculous and over the top that I'm not sure if it will work, but it seems cool.
Fun and yeah, exactly, exactly.
And it
But that
wasn't, and it
where
failed terribly, and I could have just done it sanely
it,
in an hour and
right, but
passed.
that's how where sometimes autistic individuals are our own worst enemy, and like I
Yes.
think like it's that knowing that we don't have to prove our best to get something to succession. We just have to do what is asked of us, right? In terms of work or scholastics or anything in life, right? Even as parents, like, I'm a parent. I have two boys that are mine that with I
Whew.
had with my ex-partner, and they're the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen in my life. I'm so blessed. Like honestly, like you haven't like I don't know if you guys are parents, but like kids just are so they're also hard work. So sometimes I want to put them in a cage. Oh, joking, FYI, guys, I'm joking. Please, you can edit out. But like they are difficult, right?
Oh, I
But it's a
stayed in.
blessing. Because whatever difficulties I come across, I'm learning all the time. So I also have three like stepkids. My partner or my future wife, she has three kids from a previous marriage, and so it's interesting. We have five kids, right? And like it's so interesting because you're always trying to figure out like I don't have to be the perfect parent, but I have to be the parent that creates stability, love, security, domicile, and food and nutrition to these kids, right? As long as they feel loved, heard, you can't ask for any more, right? And so yeah, I have meltdowns sometimes. And yeah, me and my partner, she's autistic. She has the same diagnosis as me. We're the same age. It's so good. Like we vibe on some crazy level. But like we're both sitting there with like, noise canceling headphones on. The kids are like, I'm like, I'll calm down in a minute. And like we'll get to them when we can regulate ourselves, you know what I mean? And and that's okay because they realize, hey, if they want stable mom and stable stepdad, they need to have 5 minutes where they're not screaming their faces off at us, just so we can go self-regulate, self-regulate. Okay, now I can deal with it, right? I need to gain another spoon back. Yeah, spoon three. So
Mhm.
it is really interesting that we tend to aim for perfection, right? We love perfection. But there's something that I've always learned, and I don't know where I heard this, but it was very true. There is never, you'll never attain the state of perfect for one simple reason. Because if you attain the state of perfect, the only way you can go then is for decline. So instead of, yeah, it's true, right? Which is crazy. So if every stage of, it's like hitting the roof. Where can you go from hitting the roof? Well, you can only go down. So I have this mindset now. I say practice makes progress. As long as we're progressing, as long as we're moving forward through space, we are going to achieve progression. You're never going to get perfect because perfect doesn't exist. And if it did exist, we just hit it and go back down to decline. We don't want to hit that trough. So always strive for more, greater progression. And with that, I always say like practice makes progress, and problems equal good things. And you're gonna be like, Daniel, crazy, right? A problem is not a good thing, and a problem is a good thing. This is what and this is the stuff that I'm teaching in my coaching when I'm doing these one-on-ones. People are like, oh, if there's many problems, I'm like, good. And I'm like, what the And I'm like, guys, listen to this, okay? This is an old proverb by the Buddha, and the Buddha said, we sat under the Bodhi tree. Crazy guy, right? Awesome, love it. Crazy. Nut is a box of frogs, but also very, very eye-opening. The Buddha said, a man who has 10 friends has 10 problems, and that's it. So I'm like, and I read this, and I was like, what? I was like, are you sure the Buddha was very wise? And I go, oh, very wise. He said this thing. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make any fucking sense. But then I was like, I realized something. I do this a lot in my life. What is the reverse? What is the opposite? And the opposite is normally the answer. Kind of like if a problem exists, we only know the problem exists because the opposite is a solution, right? So we know this is a problem because the opposite would be the solution. So why are we focusing on the problem and not just the solution? So we have a similar process. We say a man who has 10 friends has 10 problems, okay? But a man who has no friends has no problems. Perfect. Oh, well, hold on. But a guy who has no friends has no problems. Okay, but what is a life like without friends? It's bleak and it's dark. So Buddha is saying, in order to experience life in its good, we also have to experience life in its bad. There's an equal balance, right? And we take on, we assume that responsibility for everything good and bad in our lives. When we do this, we're able to flourish. So why is a problem a good thing? Very simply, if you are coming across problems, it means you are moving forward, which means you're moving in the right direction to get somewhere. If you're stood still, you're not going to have any problems, but you stood still. You're not going anywhere, bro. You stood still. Your life is not progressing. You're going to decline because that's the state of perfect, right? Stood still. So if you're moving forward, you're going to come across problems. So when I come across problems, I'm like, great, problem. I'm moving in the right direction. It's a signal. It's a sign. I've got a problem. Cool. I'll fix it. I'll solve it. I'll overcome it. And then there's going to be another problem. Bring on the problems because the more problems I come across, the more I know that the universe is telling me you are moving in the right direction. Keep going forward because the day you have no problems, there is something seriously fundamentally wrong with your life because you're stood still, stagnant, and you become lazy and docile. So I will never get to that point. I will always strive for the universe to give me problems. And I'll say it in this one context, okay? In school, we learn a ton of stuff and then we take a test and see how well we did. But in life, the universe tests the out of you and then you learn, right? It's always the opposite. Ask yourself this, like, it's true. It's like, I'm fucking unhappy right now. So what's the opposite of being unhappy? Well, it'd be happiness. So what makes you happy? The opposite of being unhappy. Perfect. So what's making you unhappy? My friends are assholes. Okay, cool. Get new friends. The opposite is always the answer. It's very simple. We already know the answers. We're inherently, look, there's a reason why. Let's go back to the start of this conversation. I said 400 trillion to one odds. Have you been alive because of all those things? You've survived all of that. Your DNA knows exactly how to survive. Your DNA, you inherently know exactly what is the solution to the problem. Sometimes we just don't see it because we're fixated on the problem. When in actual fact, we only know the problem exists because the solution exists. And we shouldn't be saying there's a problem. We should be saying, hey, there's a potential towards a solution. How do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference, right? And I love it. I love that shit.
And it's the first noble truth of the Buddha's path is that there is suffering in life and you just can't not have it. It happens. Pain comes and goes. Suffering is optional. So
Of
these
course.
problems and these challenges arise and you adapt to them and you change, and it's a way to show that you're learning and bettering. Uh,
Exactly. It's growth and it's personal development growth. You know the story that there's like a small short story where the Buddha came to this. Do you know this one about the farmer? The farmer came to the Buddha and asked him, "Hey, he says that you can solve people's problems, or you can help people. I've got all this big issue. I need your help." And the Buddha says, "Yeah, sure, please sit down with me." And the guy said, "Okay, I've got a farm, and sometimes it does really good, and sometimes it's really shit, and sometimes we have a really good yield, but last year it was terrible, and I had to kill some of my own animals to feed my kids. I got two kids, and they're both idiots, and they never respect me, and sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't, and they're teenagers now, and they're lazy, and they don't come on the farm and help me. Blah blah blah. My wife, I don't even know if she loves me anymore. We don't sleep with each other that often, and if we do, she doesn't seem to really enjoy it. And I don't know if she loves me, and she's just sticking around." And the Buddha said, "Okay, I'll stop you there." And he says, what? He said, look, you came to me to ask you to solve a problem. And the guy's like, yes. And the Buddha said, you just described life. Like, you're in charge of your life. If you want to better a situation, do more with your spouse. If you want a different spouse, then relinquish the relationship you currently got. If you want your children to respect you, have more respect for your kids. If you want the farm to do better, work harder. Life is about the equivalence of what you put in. And let me put it this way. And I always say this to people. People always want really big things in life. They want big expectations in life. I'm okay, great. What big action are you taking to create a big outcome?
Ooh.
Thermodynamics, right? If you want big outcomes, take big actions.
I feel like we could talk for days.
Sorry.
So we're no, I love it. I'm my area is adult learning and adult learning theory, and all of that is spot on with the basics of adult learning theory, which is removing barriers to comprehension and creating change. And you can only do that when you've made something enter so seamlessly into somebody's life that they
Mhm.
don't have to become a new person suddenly to put the material you've created into practice, because that's not going to happen. We're people, we're who we are. So the more you can make it so that it can just be easily adopted, then the more adoption you're going to get. And that is not always the easiest for creators, I think, to understand. You don't need necessarily all the bells and whistles, because they might just be the barriers that you're putting in place.
Exactly, exactly. We honest, it's crazy the amount of barriers to access for many things. It's shocking because the world is built by neurotypical people, and neurotypical people, unfortunately, want to sound the most intellectual because they believe that gives them prestige. When in actual fact, when you put massive words or intellectual words into your lexicon, big word, you actually look more stupid. People know that you're right because like using like a vocabulary that nobody speaks. Like, why do you do this? Like, if you want to communicate something to somebody, you'd be like, okay, what level can they understand? And to tell you who's got this down to a fine art is tabloid newspapers. Can't bloody stand them. Um, uh, they are the most intellectually mind numbing paper around. However, they use I think they use like third grade vocabulary in like Dodie dead, Diana killed. No, it's like Dodie, yeah, Dodie dead, Diana injured was the headline, right? And we knew exactly what that said. It wasn't like Dodie are fired and Princess Diana of Wales were in a car crash earlier today, and one of them is dead. The other one is holding on for the dear life. They're currently on ICU and about this 600 milligrams of whatever. No, it's like Dodie dead, Diana injured. Boom. Like we can understand things very articulately with the least amount of words possible. This is copywriting 101, right? And so the tabloids have it down to a fine art. Yet the people who believe that they are intellectual, they're like, if they knew this, then they wouldn't come out with these big speeches and like it's almost insulting, right? And I like intellectual speech because I understand that from a scientific point of view because I've read those papers and journals and I've wrote those. But in terms of the average Joe, like, come on. Anyway, it's a big gripe of mine.
That's probably a great place for us to wrap up. Where, Dan, should people find you if they want to see more of your work?
Perfect. Yeah. So if you want to find me, you can go to theaspieworld.com. So that's TheAspieWorld.com. Or you can just go to any social, and I mean every single social media platform in existence. Just click, you can go to at the Aspie World. So same at TheAspieWorld. And you can even email me, just Dan at theaspieworld.com. Like if you want to reach out to me directly, I respond to every single person, as you know. And so just reach out, email me. There's no, I'm not the Wizard of Oz. There's no cloak up here. I'm very reachable, and you can even WhatsApp me. Like there's no problem.
Nice. And just where can people find out more about you?
People can find me at CoachJessicaMichaels.com and find out how to book a call with me.
Awesome. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult. So until next time, take care of each other out there.
Bye.